When children are upset, most parenting advice tells us to tell them to calm down, to take a big breath, to sit down quietly, or let's talk about your feelings. But for many children, calm doesn't actually come from stillness. It comes from movement, moving the body. And when we understand this, a lot of behavior that looks chaotic suddenly starts to make sense. Hi, I'm Jane, and welcome to today's episode where we'll be talking about why movement actually helps regulate your child. Not all nervous systems regulate in the same way. For some children, sitting down calmly, having a cuddle, being held close actually does help settle their nervous system. But for other kids, they really need to move. They need to release energy or whatever it is, the aggression, whatever they're carrying, that is actually what helps their nervous system settle. So for some children, we have touched on the 5 regulation languages. They need connection, they need touch and comfort, they need the routine and predictability, knowing what's going to come at exactly the same time, what's going to happen next. They might need words and understanding. They might need to talk about it. They might need presence and proximity, so that really quiet presence, you just being there. But for some children, they need movement and release. Now, this is a physical release. So it's moving the body, they're regulating through that sensory input, and this is a physical release. So for many kids, it could be pushing up against a wall, running on the spot, picking up something heavy if it's safe to do so and putting it down, depending on their age and your judgment in that situation. But it's really about movement, having that sensory input, moving the body and being able to release, which actually helps settle their nervous system. When your child experiences stress or frustration, or they're feeling really overwhelmed, for example, the body releases stress hormones called adrenaline and cortisol. Now, these chemicals actually prepare the body for action. So when the body is prepared to run, to push, to move around and to react, that is when this form of regulation is ideal, because the movement really helps the body discharge those stress hormones that they're experiencing, as well as resetting the autonomic nervous system. So they've gone from that fight or flight state and they're going back into that calm, rest and digest state where the parasympathetic nervous system is activated. So it's returning them to a form of balance and a sense of balance. So movement actually helps the body finish that stress response which they've been experiencing. And this is why children naturally love to just run and jump and climb up trees, and they crash into things and they swing around and spin around all the time, because this is actually regulating their nervous systems. When a child's nervous system is highly activated, asking them to talk about their feelings or sit still or just quieten down, that actually can be really difficult for them. So when the stress response is active, the thinking brain, known as the prefrontal cortex is actually less accessible to them, kind of goes offline. And their body, though, is still holding on to that energy, being in that adrenalized state. So the regulation actually hasn't happened yet. So what a lot of parents actually say is just take a deep breath or use your words, or let's just sit down and calm down a little bit. Whereas these things can work later on, but in the moment, that body really needs to regulate itself first. Okay, here are some signs that your child regulates their nervous system through movement. So they might be constantly fidgeting, constantly wanting to touch things or fidget, or they run instead of just walking around. They're constantly on the go. They crash into cushions or jumping on the couch, or they have difficulty sitting still after they've had their big emotional moments. They need to move their body. These are all key signs that movement might be their primary regulation language. So a lot of the times these behaviours are actually misunderstood, and they're told they've got hyperactivity. But sometimes it's literally just their nervous systems needing to regulate through movement. So for your child, if they need this, get them to go out and climb, get them to dance around the house. If you want some really, really heavier regulating activities, try punching into pillows or pushing up against the wall with all your might as hard as you can. Or again, if they're old enough and it's safe to do so, pick up something really heavy and let them feel that really weight and put it down again. Or pull an object that can be pulled, obviously. Wheelbarrow walks are great. My son loves this. He always gets on his hands on the floor and says, "Mum, can you pick up my legs?" And we do wheelbarrow walks, and he just loves doing that around the house regularly. This heavy muscle work actually provides proprioceptive input, which helps calm their nervous systems, which is absolutely fantastic. Once the body has moved and released some of that stored energy, the nervous system actually becomes much more available at having that connection back again, or the conversation, or then introducing calming strategies like let's do some breathing, or let's read a story, or whatever it might be. So for some children, calm is actually the result of movement, not the starting point for them. When we realize that movement can be a form of regulation, many behaviors that used to feel really frustrating to you and you used to get really worked up about, they now start to really make sense. So knowing that your child might need movement for their regulation language, they're not being hyperactive, they're not being disobedient, they just need to move their bodies, and that's when their calm can start to come in after they've released that excess energy. So thank you for watching today's episode. Stay tuned next week, and please hit the subscribe button if nervous system based parenting is something that really resonates with you.